It's been a while, so I figured I'd take a second to complain about the recurring condition I have in the household that I'm living in that really tickles my tism the wrong way. I've described it in other videos before, and I always feel like I've done a poor job of it and just sound like I'm ungrateful, but I have an objectively confounding experience to present this time. My partner's parents have very little awareness for leftovers, sometimes going on streaks of making more and more family sized meals night after night and leaving the fridge to pile up with stuff which they do not help consume after the fact. What would normally be considered a nicety of cooking and providing food for others becomes less so when it causes a restriction on what we can eat and when, as well as a responsibility to minimize waste, because we are grateful to be fed, but it's on a scale. Like, don't try to force feed me things I don't like. This ends up affecting me quite a bit more than it would other people because not having control over my food, the quality, or the timing of it can be quite dysregulating. I don't bring this up to them, I just deal with it because I do understand it would not be well received to tell them they are making and providing too much food and that it's not good enough for me. And so, every couple months, I just have to air my autistic grievances over the illogical inconsistencies and lack of consideration on here to decompress. This dynamic has a lot of nuance. I don't expect you to agree with my point of view on everything. I am merely sharing how and why certain things affect me in hopes that it can bridge some sort of understanding for people who may be causing this sort of imposition on others, or provide catharsis for those who can relate. So I have 4 anecdotes to elaborate on. Story number 1. Finish the milk. My partner's mother was trying her hand at homemade yogurt. There was some successes and failures, and I think it's fun that she's doing something new. When she gets the hang of it, I'd be willing to try some, but the last batch unfortunately curdles. And she ate it anyway. So, anyway, for making yogurt, she bought slightly higher quality milk, a brand that we don't normally get, and we were all aware that its purpose was for making yogurt, so we shouldn't touch it. And we didn't. And then, one day, I find that the carton of milk has moved spots in the fridge to the door where the communal milk is kept, and it now has written on it, "Please drink." If you were naive to the ways of this household, you might think, "Yay, fancy milk, I'll have some." But I am slowly learning my lesson, and the first thing I did was check the expiry date, and sure enough, it was already a week expired. Maybe it's just me, but I find that kind of diabolical. I understand she's unhappy her fancy milk expired and doesn't want to throw it out, but just presenting it to others, putting that out there like it's normal when it's already that bad, why would you do that to someone unsuspecting? And again, I feel that pull of communal responsibility, like I should help and consume it, but I know I shouldn't. She's the one who dropped the ball keeping track of the expiry date. It shouldn't fall on anyone else to stomach the results. I'm pretty sure it expired on February 6th, and I'm writing this on the 20th, and it's still in the fridge, which makes my last saucy hypocrisy video sting all the more. But this leads into story number 2, unholy garlic. Sometime last summer, my partner's dad tried his hand at making honey garlic in a jar. I don't know what else he may have added. As far as I know, it's just garlic marinated in honey, but the jar itself was never sealed. So a couple weeks ago, me and Z are having chicken wings, and we come down to the kitchen and the honey garlic jar is on the table. And his parents ask us if we want to use it on our foods, and we all just look at it. It hasn't preserved. It's a significantly darker brown than when it started, and some of the layers are separating. They literally ask us, "Are you brave enough?" And we shook our heads, and they even admitted that they don't blame us, so you'd think, since we all agreed that it's scary and inedible, it'd get thrown out, right? Nope, it's just gonna go back on the pantry shelf. And I just can't wrap my head around it. Like, they don't want to eat it, no one else will. Why are we keeping spoiled food at every opportunity? It makes no sense. Segue into story number 3, cooking for no one. One morning, everyone else was in the kitchen and had a nice family breakfast. When I came down later, because I don't eat till lunchtime, all of the food was still out. But that was okay, I supposed, because it's not food safe to put hot food straight into a fridge. there's an acceptable period of time for people to wait to clean up after themselves. I'm not a strict warden or anything, okay? But time went on, and nobody went to collect it. And although everything had been made at like 8 a.m., I was the one who ended up putting the plate of bacon and the full pan of potatoes away at like closer to 3 p.m. And because I was the one who did it, I know how much food got put away. When I scooped the mini potatoes into a bowl, I noticed that it looked like none of them had gotten eaten from when they were prepared. Like, the pan was perfectly full of mini potatoes, that it didn't look like a single one more could have fit in there when they were cooking it. There was nothing special about them. They were just little yellow potatoes, boiled and then left in the pan with a little bit of oil to get a bit of color on the skin. No additional seasoning or anything, just literally little potatoes. And I watched over the next week that absolutely no one touched those potatoes except for the ones that I went out of my way to eat, which I didn't necessarily want. They were already cooked and unseasoned. There's not much to do with those except to put in as much effort to kick it up a notch as it would have taken to just cook them myself. And the frustrating thing about it is, why do you make them then? Like, if you don't even want to eat them, why did you make them? It is not a courtesy to make a food for other people and expect them to eat it when you yourself don't even want it, won't eat it. Like, what's that about? And again, all it does is put a timer and pressure on me to compensate for that needless food waste. So now, story number 4, fixing meals. Not only does my partner's mother sometimes cook meals with no purpose other than to expect others who did not ask or want an over-preparation of food, and which she will not help with eating, but she also sometimes cooks it lazily. I have spoken before about her experimenting has affected my safe foods before, but this is different. She decided to make shepherd's pie, which is sometimes friggin' awesome, but then just decided not to put her full effort in. Sometimes that's okay, like every meal doesn't need to be a masterpiece, but in those cases, you're allowed to phone it in by making something simpler, like just make nuggies and fries. It's something else to pick a more complicated recipe and decide halfway through not to put the effort in to finish it correctly, because then what are you left with? It could have been worse, but it was also the bare minimum. Completely dry, unseasoned ground beef in a bowl with a frozen vegetable medley and the aforementioned little potatoes that had been cooked and lightly pressed down upon in the pan that had been left for weeks, just thrown in whole. And it's like, yeah, I ate it. I try to appreciate the effort that was put in, but it's much less of a favor and more of an inconvenience to have to fix meals after the fact. If you weren't going to do it right from the start, why do it at all? You could have done anything else, any other food, any other meal. Nobody was asking for shepherd's pie, and you clearly didn't, and she didn't even want some herself. So why why did she choose to make it poorly? So I did season the filling and make some gravy to moisten everything up, and it was fine, good even, but I just find it to be such an imposition sometimes. Not only is responsibility placed on me to eat food to mitigate leftovers because no one else will, I also have to fix food that's been slapped together with a good enough attitude so that I can be willing to eat it. I know it sounds ungrateful, but at a certain point, it is not a favor to cook stuff for people anymore. If you have to put just as much labor in to make something worth eating, then I'd have rather had the freedom to do it myself from the start and have control over what I was eating in the first place. So yeah, that's like my every couple months rants. If you have any really strange, weird, safe food problems that you have with your household, feel free to drop that in the comments. It's so weird, and I'm sorry, it's hard to explain, but like, goddamn, stop making and touching my food and influencing when I eat my food and what food, and oh my god. I would love to just be left in peace.